Good evening, everyone. I'm Divya. I'm part of the investments team at Avendus Future Leaders Fund. On behalf of Avendus, it is my pleasure to welcome you to Avendus Future Leaders Fund Investor Day. This evening is really about one idea: how category leaders are built and what it takes to scale them into enduring institutions. For us at Avendus Future Leaders Fund, this belief sits at the core of our investments approach, backing businesses that are not just growing but shaping their categories, and partnering with founders as they transition from building companies to building institutions. Tonight is an opportunity to step back and reflect on that journey through conversations with investors, operators, and leaders that have been at the forefront of building category defining businesses. To set the tone for the evening, we'll now play a short audiovisual that captures Avendus's journey so far, along with a glimpse into some of the remarkable companies that are part of the family. AV, please. Thank you. Thank you so much. Let me now invite someone who has been at the heart of this journey to take the thought forward and share the vision behind Avendus Future Leaders Fund. Please join me in welcoming Ritesh Chandra, Managing Partner of the fund.
Hello. Very good evening to everybody, and thank you so much for making it here. It truly is a very sentimental day for me to see all of you here, most of my investors, a lot of my portfolio companies. Two sets of people that I'd like to thank. Investors, first and foremost, thank you for taking out the time. It's your belief, it's your conviction in us that makes us who we are. And the entrepreneurs today who are with us. Today is a celebration of the great businesses that we're building. And honestly, we couldn't think of a better platform than this to honor and celebrate what we're building now. As I look back in when we started our journey about 8 years ago, we were thinking about where do we deploy capital and how do we leverage the network, the relationships, and the industry expertise that we have as a house. We have relationships with over 2,500 entrepreneurs in India. And entrepreneurs are the true builders of New India, if I may use that word. We debated a lot about it. In fact, some of you may be aware, we spent close to a year thinking about which businesses to back and where to invest capital. And one simple answer stood out for us was very simple. 2 or 3 things. Back great entrepreneurs. Great entrepreneurs will always produce outsized outcomes. And the fundamental focus of FLF has always been to back high quality entrepreneurs who are creating outsized outcomes. The other factor that we look for in any company is market leadership. We've been always focused on identifying market leaders and seeing which market leaders are creating outsized profit pools. And those are the market leaders that we look at backing. The whole idea was to use our conviction, rigor of analytics, knowledge of the industry, and bring it to bear for our investors. The idea for us is to give access to the investors to a set of best-in-class companies so that we can generate consistent, predictable outcomes for our investors. And I think that is the fundamental ethos of what we do at the Future Leaders Fund. The one thing that we stay away from is flavors of the month. So our approach is driven by a top-down analysis of the market, industry, expertise, and, as I said, execution. I think one of the things that you will notice in all our portfolio companies is the ability of entrepreneurs to have executed at scale. And I think that's something that we look for in any business that we invest in. Our focus, as you saw in the AV, has always been to back category creators. So companies like Indegene, Lenskart, Licious, Ilgen are all examples of businesses which have created categories which have been fairly new to India. We've also had businesses which are market leaders in their own right. So companies like Aragen Life Sciences, Avance, Veritas are all examples of businesses which have disproportionate market share in the segments that they operate in. And I think that's the fundamental ethos on how we look at businesses. If I was to look at the market today and look at the opportunity set, just dwelling back, 2017-18, there were give or take about 25 odd unicorns in this country. Private markets were just about beginning to develop. As we stand today, there are over 130 unicorns in the market. The private market pool has deepened extensively. You have had over about $45 billion of investment coming into India every year on year into the private markets. And this is only likely to get accelerated as we go along. What this shows is that investors have significant confidence in the depth of the private markets. Also, what's happening is the liability pool is changing very significantly. Historically, family offices were early adopters to the private market. But now you're seeing insurance companies, pension funds, banks, sovereign funds all invest very significantly in the private markets. That's actually been a very, very positive sign because it's led to a deepening of the ecosystem and a deepening of the liability pool. On the other hand, what's also happened is that exits have started to become easier. So if you look at the biggest pain that people had in the early, I'd say between 2015 to 20, was the fact that exits are not there. Today, the primary markets being where they are have actually facilitated exits quite easily. And because capital is coming back to the investors, there's a virtuous cycle which is developed in terms of money coming back and investors reinvesting their capital into the company. So that's really how we see the market. And I think if you look at the market today, my sense is the market in the private markets would be worth anywhere between 500 to 600 million today. But the growth in the private markets is going to be far outsized as compared to what the public markets are doing. And that's where the opportunity lies. So how do we see the fund going forward and what is the way forward for us? I think the way forward for us is 2 or 3 clear things. Some things will remain the same for us and some things are changing. We are extremely focused on identifying and working on industries ahead of the curve, right? So we are increasing our focus on sectors like manufacturing today. We genuinely believe that's going to be the next growth driver in the industry. While our traditional focus on sectors like consumption, financial services, healthcare continues, we are extremely focused on sectors like manufacturing. We're focused on sectors which are getting benefits of artificial intelligence permeating now. That's going to be a key focus for us. We are going to be focused on doing significantly larger transactions than historically we've been doing. And the reason why we can say that with confidence is because a large part of the investor pool that we have has actually wanting to participate with us on co-investment opportunities. So you will increasingly find us doing larger deals. What hasn't changed for us is the focus on rigor and analytics on when we do a deal. I think one of the challenges that we've had is that India's never been a cheap market. India's always been an expensive market. But how do you ensure pricing discipline when you are doing deals? That doesn't change for us, irrespective of the size of the deals that we do. I think we are very, very clear. We are happy to sit out of the market in case the pricing doesn't work. The pricing discipline is sacrosanct for us. And that doesn't change for us at all. So you will see us with periods of inactivity. I can promise you we are not on vacation. We are working very hard. But the reality of the situation is we will only invest when we are convinced, when we do it with complete conviction, complete rigor, and complete ownership of what we land up doing. I just, conclude by saying that I think the opportunity before us is huge. Okay, how we utilize it is literally a function of getting into hardcore processes for us and ensuring that we stick to the straight and narrow on what we have taken capital from. I think one of the things that we will continue to do is, and again, you will hear this theme from me again and again as you go, is continue to back great entrepreneurs. We focus first on the quality of the entrepreneur because I genuinely believe the quality of the entrepreneur determines the outcome of the business. And that's something that we will continue to focus on. Lastly, I think, for my investors who are here, thank you so much once again for making it. And I want to say this from the bottom of my heart, all of you have choices to deploy your capital. Yet you chose to repose your faith in us. And I think that trust is something that we hold extremely dear to us. It's something that we value extremely significantly. So thank you so much for reposing your confidence in us. We will make utmost efforts to make sure that we honor that trust and continue to increase that trust with you. We look at you as long-term partners, and I think that's something that we are quite proud of. For the entrepreneurs today, I think the key message that I want to leave behind is you have us as partners. We have the full weight of the Avendus organization behind you. We are here to make you sure that you succeed, and anything that we can do as a firm, as an organization, you can rest assured we are there. We are your midnight friends, your 2 o'clock friends. Pick up the phone and call us. Gentlemen, thank you so much once again for being here, and please welcome to the Annual Investor Day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ritesh. And now, to speak about the changing face of entrepreneurship and how entrepreneurs are at the forefront of value creation in India, it's my pleasure to invite Gaurav Deepak, co-founder and CEO of Avendus Group.
Hi, thank you and good evening. Great to be again meeting a lot of old friends and new faces. You know, for me, Kaushal and a lot of other vendors in the room, and almost our core passion is entrepreneurship. We have a true belief. We ended up starting Avendus. It was a serendipity, and a lot of things came together way back when we were mid-20s in 2000. And if you look at our journey over the last 26 years now, it is twofold. The journey of our entrepreneur clients, and we've been very privileged to work with almost 2,000 plus entrepreneurs very closely over the last 20 years, 25 years. And the journey of our team, our clients, our talent. Ritesh been with the firm for almost 18 years now. And you know, a lot of colleagues in the room who've been with the firm for a 25-year-old firm, to have people who work with the firm for 10 years, 15 years, and 20 for the privilege. So I think we've seen what I would call is the compounding of India over the last 25 years. And think about three guys who are 25, 26, and 27 trying to do investment banking way back in 2000. So what ended up happening for us was we ended up engaging with people who were thinking new, thinking fresh. So there was the traditional businesses who started in the 70s, 60s, 80s, and we were engaging with them. But a lot of the engagement that we ended up having was people who were thinking new and thinking different. Over the next, from 2000 to almost 2015, 20, we were also initially finding our own feet. We didn't know whether we were a business or, we were a collection of people trying to achieve something. I think by the time the whole group came together, I would say it took us 12, 15 years. We realized that India has become multidimensional. So like we always had a very heterogeneous social structure in India. Languages, food, people. The commercial structure of India was largely homogeneous. You would have one Hindustan lever servicing you, you had one couple of car guys servicing you, etc. I think as the income levels rose, you saw a multidimensional or actually commercial heterogeneity, what I call, came up together based on multiple things. And the traditional business models, because we had now a history of 15 years or so, the commercial business model, the commercial way of working, the mindset of the 80s and 90s was largely not sufficient enough to address the new mindset of the new guys. Some of them transformed, but most of them stayed back. So they always, I think, had a role. And what we realized was that there is an absolute fantastic role in a very meaningful way for the new generation that is coming up. So just to give you a sense today, and that's what ended up starting the two triggers that happened to start the Future Leaders Fund contextually. One was Ritesh came one day and said, I would really want to kind of work for the next 20 years, but I don't want to do investment banking anymore. I said, what do you want to do? I said, I love entrepreneurs, and is there a way we can play with them more longer term? And then second thing, we are really, really feeling that, our clients who are, by the time we had a large wealth business, and our clients had exposure to public markets. Just to give you one stat, today at a $5 trillion public market cap, 90 to 92% of that market cap is owned by businesses that started before 2000. So when you go to public markets, and that's the large mode of investing for all of you and clients, you actually get exposure to what germinated in the roots which were created way back in the 60s, like Reliance 66 or HDFC Bank in 1995 or Bharti Airtel in 95 or Americo or Infosys in 1980. So those roots played out and created value for all of us shareholders, and whichever these businesses we invested 20 years back, we made a lot of money. And I think but there were no, and we all entrepreneurs here know what counts is the roots. We all play for the fruits later, but what actually really, really counts is our culture and the roots and the way of thinking. And there were new roots that are getting created, like Manish here I see, and Amber you created here. So I think the new roots that were getting created from the 2000, which we were party to, our investors and clients had a very little exposure to. So we actually felt that it would be amazing if we can find somebody who can deliver the whole Avendus ecosystem, and there was no better person than Ritesh, because he knew the Avendus ecosystem and a lot of relationships. And that's where he ended up starting in 2018. And 8 years later, actually, we are very proud, and thank you the Future Leaders Fund team. I think we are very, very proud of what we've done. We're very excited to partner with the clients we have had, and I hope as investors, we continue to be as partners to give you returns. Two things that stand for me from a future value perspective. I think the life cycle of innovation is getting shorter. So you will see over the next 10 years, a very asymmetric value creation in the world. You know, it is not rising tide lifts all. So we can't say that the Indian market cap or the Indian commercial ecosystem will grow and everybody will participate, which was actually very homogeneous way back. I think we'll see a very asymmetric value creation of what happens over the next 10 years, driven by what's happening in AI and other things in technology. So we hope to be partner, given our huge insights across the Avendus ecosystem, across 6 sectors, 60 subsectors, our relations in the market. We hope to be able to bring to you those asymmetric opportunities that Ritesh spoke again and again and again. So we continue to remain partners. We are also very proud of our partnership with our clients. Some of our clients are 20 years with us and compounding. So thank you again for your faith in us, and I look forward to talking to you today evening. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Gaurav. We now turn to something that is at the core of Avendus Future Leaders Fund, leadership. Because ultimately, strategy can be designed and capital can be deployed, but it is leadership that ultimately determines how organizations navigate uncertainty, build conviction, and execute at scale. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a privilege to invite to the stage a leader who has operated at the very highest levels of strategy, decision-making, and execution under pressure. Lieutenant General D.S. Huda is one of India's most distinguished military leaders with a career spanning over 4 decades in the Indian Army. As the former General Office Commander-in-Chief of the Northern Command, he led the Army through some of the most critical moments, including the 2016 surgical strikes, and managed complex strategic challenges along our borders. Over the course of his career, he has held several key leadership roles, from commanding counterinsurgency operations in the Northeast to contributing to international missions with the United Nations and to overseeing aspects of India's strategic forces. His exceptional service has been recognized with some of the country's highest military honors, including the Param Vishisht Seva Medal, Uttam Yudh Seva Medal, Ati Vishisht Seva Medal, and Vishisht Seva Medal. Please join me in welcoming Lieutenant General Dipinder Singh Huda. And to lead this conversation, may I also invite Ritesh Chandra back on the stage for the fireside chat. Thank you.
So folks, honestly, it's a serious honor to have Lieutenant General Huda with us today evening. When we were conceptualizing this event, the one thing that we were very focused on is to how do we identify people who've done leadership and who excelled at the highest ranks where the stakes are the highest. All of us run different businesses. All of us have difficult choices to make. But I can dare say that nothing comes close to the decision making that is required in the forces. And I think what we thought we'll get today from General Huda is a perspective on leadership in a non-business context, and then see if there are any parallels to our daily lives in the business context. Huda, thank you so much for being with us this evening. A couple of things. So I think 2-3 facets are fairly common in leadership, right? In terms of building trust, in terms of the teams trusting you, in terms of having a clear vision and goal, right? How do you see this working in real life, and especially in the forces, for example, where there's a lot of ambiguity? All of us deal with ambiguity on a regular basis, right? And especially given your experience with the Uri strikes, I think nothing compares to the stakes that you were operating on. So would love to hear from you on how leaders operate in ambiguity.
So thank you very much, Ritesh. Great pleasure to be here with all of you and to share some of my experiences on leadership. I think there are there are huge parallels between military life as far as leadership is concerned and corporate life. Good organization, good leaders, I think carry the same kind of ethos and the same kind of values, whether you are in uniform or you're outside. So let me start. I think there's a lot of talk about Uri and the surgical strike. So let me start with that operation. And I still recall 18 September 2016 was the day when we had the first attack on the Uri garrison. What had happened that day was that we had a unit of about 500 men which was transiting through Uri garrison. Now, Uri garrison is a small garrison, doesn't have the accommodation. So these people had, military style pitched up tents very close to the perimeter. So there was a row of about 50 tents that had been pitched up. Unfortunately, it was at that time that 4 terrorists sneaked into the garrison. The first thing that they came across was this huge row of tents. They fired, the tents all went up in flames, and by the time the operation got over, we had lost 19 soldiers, dozens were injured. I was the Army Commander of Northern Command, and so the operation, the counter insurgency operation, directly under me. Sorry, one second. Yeah. So this is the scene, smoke everywhere, and immediately, of course, criticism started flowing in. What have you done? How is it that so many soldiers have been lost? And serious criticism of the kind that you can't protect your own garrisons. You're supposed to be defending the country. And the immediate, reaction is, let's lash out at somebody. Who's to blame? Find out, catch hold of him. Or you catch your head and say, my God, why didn't it have to happen on my watch? But I think the critical thing for leaders at that stage is sort of put that hurt sort of deep inside you and tell yourself, today is not for despair. And that's my personal mantra. Today is not for despair. You faced a setback. You need to be able to find now a path and ways to respond to that. And that is exactly what we did. Almost immediately, we had started planning for what famously became known as the surgical strike. And that really lifted everybody's mood who was directly concerned that, look, we are looking ahead, something that we now need to plan on, something that we need to do. And that we're not looking backwards and sort of cursing ourselves as to what has happened. So we made a plan, and this is sort of plan that we made. I know a lot of you may have seen that movie, Uri. The plan was much more complex. Yeah, because you can only have one Vicky Kaushal, right, in the movie, so he can only do one operation. So this was the plan we made. So we decided that we will strike at 5 places across the line of control, across from north to south, almost 250 kilometers. 5 targets to be hit on the same night. First targets were hit at midnight, the last targets were hit at 6 in the morning. So the 6-hour difference. We had hundreds of men who had to cross the border, and this is one of the most heavily guarded borders in the world. So, and when I presented the plan, I was asked, aren't you taking too much risk? Isn't the plan too ambitious? You already had a setback, and now you make this very complex, ambitious plan. Is the risk worth taking? And that's a question that often comes to leaders. And I think the answer to that lies in, why are you doing this? What is the purpose? What are you trying to achieve? What is your objective? And if the objective was that we had to send a strong message to Pakistan, then something small would not work. So you consider the objective, you consider the risk that is there, consider whether the people who are going to do it, do you have confidence in them to execute it? And we had all 3. And therefore, decision making was not that difficult. And so we went ahead, did the strikes, everybody came back safe, and the rest is history.
Thank you, sir. That's really insightful. But one of the facets that that we look at
Thank you.
is the variability, the ambiguity, right? And business leaders often, we always don't have perfect information. How do you make such a high stakes decision in such an ambiguous environment?
Look, I think the fact is that information is never going to be perfect. And even if it is perfect information on the day you plan, that information could have changed the next day. I mean, Trump is there, right? So there is, in the military, there's a very famous saying, no plan of attack survives first contact with the enemy. So you might make the best of plans. The minute you start your attack, you will have to change it, you will have to modify it. Because there are factors which are beyond your control. If you think everything is going to go perfectly, it's not going to happen. What can help, and I would suggest, sort of two things to you. One is, have you prepared for the unexpected? We focus a lot on looking at different situations, different contingencies. We focus a lot on training. So if you go to any training institution, the first thing that you will find on the board outside would be the saying, the more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed in war. So have you trained, prepared yourself for it? People ask, how was it that within 10 days you were able to carry out the surgical strike and this complex operation? Because we had been planning for it for almost 1 year. We had planned, prepared, we had got our target folders, we had gathered as much information as we could about possible targets. And so we were able to do that, So speed comes with prior planning and preparation. And I think, Ritesh, the second thing that helps is what we call contingency planning. After the plan is prepared, a great deal of effort goes into a section called contingency planning. If this happens, what do you do? If such a thing happens, what do you do? That takes up a lot of your planning sort of process and energy. The biggest challenge for me when this surgical strike operation was going on was not whether our troops would succeed or they would not succeed. We were quite confident that we had made a good plan, we had given them all the resources. The big question mark in my head was, would there a contingency come up which we haven't planned for? So we had planned for everything. If somebody gets injured, what to do? Some team gets caught on the other side, what do we do? How do we react? So the big question was, is there a contingency that you haven't thought of, which will come and sort of bite you in the back? So I think it's critical that we prepare these contingencies. I would also suggest to you, yes, a lot of effort goes into day-to-day sort of operations. Have a small team of people who are just completely divorced from what is happening on a day-to-day basis and looking at various contingencies in the future. We have some small section like that. We call it the planning section. They don't look at day-to-day operations at all. Just look at future scenarios, future contingencies, and then they come to the boss and say, can we war game this? Can we practice this? So I think that helps in situations where you're not completely sort of clear about what could happen.
Thank you, sir. So the other facet that is the most interesting for us, and again a very strong parallel with the corporate world, is teams. Now, everybody of us is focused on building high quality teams, spending time in creating teams which are aligned with our vision. Nothing is more important in the forces than teams, right? How do you motivate a bunch of people in such an uncertain environment and align them with the fact that you've thought through, and how do they buy into your vision? How do you sell them?
See, look, I think, we all talk about, when we talk about teams, we all talk about collaboration. That collaboration is hugely important. That is key to building strong teams. In the military, we actually go beyond collaboration to trust. How do you bring in trust between team members? And that to us is sort of the key to building strong teams. So let me give you a small story here. So this is September 2015, and we had a team of special forces carrying out an operation in Kashmir in a place called Hafruda Forest, and they were after some terrorists. Unfortunately, the terrorists got to know that this team is coming, and they laid an ambush. And the special forces soldiers walked into that ambush. The terrorists fired. The first two boys who were on the patrol were seriously injured, and they dropped dead. Behind these two boys was Lance Naik Goswami and Subedar Mahinder Singh, the two who were following them. And these two immediately rushed to rescue these two boys. They pulled them out, and these two boys survived. They were taken to the hospital. Unfortunately, in the operation, Lance Naik Goswami lost his life. He was killed in rescuing his comrades. That's his wife. She's receiving the Ashok Chakra from the president. It's the highest peacetime gallantry award. And on the right is Subedar Mahinder Singh, and he also was awarded a Kirti Chakra. And he's sitting on what looks like a wheelchair, because it is a wheelchair, sitting and receiving the award, because he got shot on the back and got paralyzed waist downwards. And people ask, why is it people do this? Nobody ordered Goswami and Mahinder to go and rescue these guys. It's just almost instinctive. It's because there is so much trust and faith among the team members that, look, if something happens to me, there is somebody who's got my back, and that he will come to my assistance. And I think if we can build that kind of culture within teams, people will ask, is there some 2-3 factors which will go into building that kind of trust? And I would say it's not 2 or 3 factors, it's the kind of culture that you can create. A culture where team members share their hardships, a culture where team members say, we will not go to the boss for every small thing, we will sort it out among ourselves. A culture where people will say, we are here to help you. If that kind of sort of culture gets created within the organization, then how do you know it's got created? You will know when every team member takes ownership of the plan. So whenever you make a plan, there's going to be a lot of back and forth. Some people will agree, some people will disagree. But yes, when the final plan is made, if everybody says, this is my plan, I take ownership of it, I will execute it to the best of my ability. That kind of climate, if you can create, I think would be outstanding.
Lovely. So the other thing, and again, you risen through the ranks, all of us have at some point in time, rolled up our sleeves and worked. How difficult is it as a leader to say, listen, I will let my team do this and I will step back, and over a period of time, because natural instinct is, hey, let me do it myself. How difficult is it for a leader to step back?
Well, it's not easy, honestly. You've gone through, when you go through the ranks, then obviously you are sort of leading from the front and saying, look, I have to be everywhere. As you rise in ranks, some of that sort of stays with you always. I call it the dilemma of involvement versus detachment. So, how much should a leader involve himself? How much should he detach himself? Because often too much involvement and you're too close to the ground inhibits you from seeing the big picture. So there is also a need to sort of somewhat detach yourself and you have confidence in your people, then let them do. I think you also have to understand your limitations as a leader. There are things you cannot do as well as people on the ground. And so your involvement too much is only going to sort of hinder them a little bit. After the surgical strike operation was over, I had retired, and there were a lot of TV interviews that I went to, and one question that was always asked was, look, this was such a crucial operation, so you must have been sort of overseeing it minute to minute. And the answer is no, absolutely no. Once the soldiers had crossed the border and gone, sitting in my headquarters in Udhampur, there was very little I could do to change the trajectory of what would happen. So while we were watching it, but the people on the ground were the ones who had to execute it. There was not a single message from me to them as to what you should be doing. They did it themselves. So, as I said, you have confidence in your people, you've given them the resources that they need, now just sort of let them go ahead and do it.
An add-on question to that, when you, especially when teams execute, is clarity of thought and clarity of mission. Now, nothing is more, in the forces again, that's clarity of vision stands out. As organizations scale, we often find that clarity can get sometimes diluted. How do you ensure that every mission member knows exactly what is required to be done?
Yeah, okay, so clarity is absolutely crucial. Everybody should know, what the mission is. Often, we confuse the plan with clarity of the mission. So there is a difference between plan. And so when we make the plan, the first thing we put on top is commander's intent. What is the intent of the commander? And then you make the plan. So the plan tells you what to do. Commander's intent tells you what to do when the plan fails, or the plan is not working according to what you want to do. So some things have changed, circumstances have changed, then everybody down below knows, look, the commander's intent is clear. And it is according to that intent that I must now work. So another small incident, this is September 2014. A few days before Xi Jinping was to land in India for a summit meeting with Prime Minister Modi, preparations were on. The country was to, I think, come in the next 48 hours or so. We have a small post in eastern Ladakh called Chumar. Chumar is a post headed by a captain with about 50 soldiers under him. And 2 days before Xi Jinping was to come, suddenly about 1,000 Chinese soldiers appeared across, armed with earth-moving equipment, dozers, etc., and tried to sort of doze their way and create a road into our area. And this young captain rushed with his men. This is the lead dozer of the Chinese. He climbed up, pulled out the driver, and just refused to let this move. So what you see around the dozers are our soldiers, and what you see behind is all the Chinese. So by the time the Chinese could react, and we sort of built up reinforcements, the standoff almost carried on for about 2 weeks. Xi Jinping came and left. After everything was over, everybody claimed the credit for this, starting from the top. See what a strong stance we have taken politically, diplomatically. I also took some credit. Said, look, the army has done such a great job. The credit completely goes to this one young captain. And he acted because he was clear about what his mission is. He didn't think, let me pick up the phone, I'll create a political situation, I'll create a diplomatic situation in the country. No, my job is to not let these Chinese come across our border. And that's exactly what he did. And if he had not immediately reacted, so in your organizations, I think everybody must be clear. As leaders, you should ask maybe your junior most guy and say, what does my company want to achieve in the next 1 year? And how do you see your role in that? And if he's not able to answer that with clarity, then I think the leaders must do some soul searching as to why have we not been able to communicate this clarity to him.
So in business, we have a concept of sunk cost fallacy. Business plans often don't go, and you continue to invest capital. Are you adding to your losses just by continuing to add to that? I'm curious, is there a military parallel when things are not going according to plan, right? When do you call it quits? And when do you say, listen, when you have the conviction to say, listen, this is not working, let's just do something else?
Yeah, so curiously, there is an army equivalent to this. And we call it don't reinforce failure. That if a plan is not working, that you launched an attack from one direction, it is not succeeding, don't push in more and more soldiers behind that. And that has been the cause of many great failures in military history. And I think the issue is not so much tactical as it is human. That we get stuck to our plans. How can I admit that I was wrong? That the plan that was made by me as a leader was not good. People below you are sometimes reluctant to say, "Oh, how can I tell the boss the plan is not working?" So, which is why I'm saying this. It's more human than tactical. And I think the default option often is, look, let's give more resources to this plan. Give more resources. I think we haven't given enough funding for it. So let's continue with the same plan, but with greater resources. And I think that's more often than not, resources are not the problem, strategy is the problem. And so you need to look at as leaders, do I need to change my strategy? And you see this, why would America after 20 years slink out of Afghanistan? Is there any comparison on the kind of resources, the kind of military between the two countries? It's just that the strategy was flawed of what they were wanting to achieve. So I think at some stage, and if the leader himself steps up and says, look, I think this plan is not working and that we need to change, that gives a lot of sort of confidence. And they said otherwise, juniors are very, very reluctant to say, boss ka plan kharab hai, kaam nahi kar raha hai.
So the next question I have is on decision making. When you are making decisions which literally impact life and death, what do you rely on most? Process, instinct, experience, or a combination of everything?
So again, varies, right? So when I was a young officer, it was mostly processes. This is the standard operating procedure. These are the drills that I need to follow. This is what I've learned. I think as you grow in service, as you grow in leadership roles, you rely more and more on experience. Sort of like a muscle memory. This thing had happened to me in the past or happened to somebody else in the past, and this is the way we had sort of overcome it. A lot of people call it instinct. I would say it's more experience, and it's also the ability to learn. So we have, after every sort of operation that happens, there is an after action report, and that after action report is circulated. That look, this has happened. This is how it went. These are the lessons that have come out from that. That's a very good practice if you can circulate, these kind of lessons. In a crisis, I think the key is to decision making is decisiveness. Let me just explain that with my own experience. So, I was posted at Uri in 2005. On October 8, 2005, we were hit by a massive earthquake. in Jammu Kashmir, and I was commanding the same garrison, Uri garrison, which got attacked. And these are the scenes. We had something like 160 buildings, 155 were in this state, completely collapsed. The Uri market was on fire. Roads were completely blocked. All roads leading into bridges had collapsed. And of course, within minutes of this happening, not only looking after ourselves, but thousands of civilians started coming into the garrison saying, yeah, please save us. We were completely cut off from the rest of the world, and I was the senior most officer there, and everybody is looking at me and saying, "Batao kya karna hai?" And of course, my first experience also in a situation like this. In a crisis, see, if you're looking for a perfect decision, the most correct decision, it's not going to come. And you're faced with hundreds of small things. You have only 5 doses. Do you use them all for digging through the rubble, searching for survivors? Or do you say, okay, I will send some of them to open the roads? Because if you don't open the roads, how will you get supplies inside? But if you remove it from rescue, the people on the ground will tell you, sir, somebody is buried up, heartless, the way you are behaving. There are 100 injured people lying on the ground. You can only rescue 10 at a time because there are only limited helicopters that are coming in. Whom do you rescue first? The most seriously injured, who may not survive even if he gets to the hospital, or the not so seriously injured who has a chance of survival. If you take the not so seriously injured and leave the most seriously injured there, people are going to look at you and say, this guy has gone crazy. But there is no time to sort of wait, which is why I say in a crisis you need to be decisive. If you falter, you can't push it upstairs. You can't say, I'm going to send it to my boss. Let's have a committee and talk about it. And if you're not decisive, a lethargy seeps into the organization. Everybody is waiting, boss batayega tabhi hum karenge. But if you're decisive, then you find, the organization gets charged up and says, yeah, okay, we know what to do. Everything may not be 100% right, but at least there is a direction where we need to move forward. So I think decisiveness in a crisis is absolutely the key. Please, somebody will get hurt. It's a crisis. You can't satisfy everyone. But that should not stop you from taking decisive action.
So which brings me to the next question. How do you mentally train yourself and get that resilience built in to handle such situations and have clarity of thought and action in such a situation? How do we build that muscle memory?
Yeah, so many things sort of go into it. I think your own sort of physical, mental makeup, support that you have from comrades and friends, that helps you. Support from family sort of helps you. But if you ask me, what is the one thing, and I'm speaking purely from my military experience, what is the one thing that gives you that massive inner strength to sort of keep moving ahead even in very difficult situations? It is, I call it the power of purpose, that sense of purpose about what you are doing. So again, a few photographs for you, and then I will sort of try and put this in context. This is Siachen, right? You look at the photograph and say, my God, like straight out of National Geographic, beautiful, most deadly place in the world. So, temperatures go down to minus 60 degrees. You get 60 feet of snow in winters. Oxygen levels are about 50% of what we are breathing here. So every step you take is a huge effort. This is a post called Bana Post. This is the highest military deployment anywhere in the world, more than 21,000 feet. And It's man 24/7, 365. Now here, of course, at these heights, it's very difficult to construct anything. You can't even carry anything at these places. So most people live in tents. But even tents become a luxury. There are places where you just can't even take tents. So this is how you create your living shelters. This is how people stay. And it's not as if you're just going there and you tucked inside and say, we need to just protect ourselves. You have to continue to do your work. You have to patrol. And the question is, what is it that gives these people this enormous resilience to operate and to work in these conditions? And I come back to that. It's that very strong sense of purpose. What are we doing here? We are here to. It's larger than our day-to-day thing, or larger than our discomfort. We're protecting the country, securing the borders. These are not sort of empty sort of slogans. People say, on my performance rests the reputation of my organization. पलटन की इज्जत मेरे हाथ में है. And therefore my work is crucial and critical. And you might say, oh look, you're in the army, so you can think like this. I mean, we are in corporate life. I mean, how do we think like this? But I think you're all leaders. You have to ask yourself, what I'm doing, is there something beyond my day-to-day work? What is my purpose here? Viktor Frankl was a Holocaust survivor. He wrote a book called Man in Search of Meaning. And he writes in that, he said, what man wants is not a tensionless state, but the striving and struggling for some goal worthy of him. So I think that is something that, and particularly at your levels of seniority, what is the larger purpose that you're serving? And I think when we had our initial discussion, you did mention that it's just not merely that we are here to make money, but there's also some larger purpose to what we are doing.
Thank you so much, sir. So I know we can keep talking, but if I'm going to conclude the session with a quick rapid fire with you, what's your one habit from military life that you still follow every day?
So just being on time. And I find that more and more difficult now, because sometimes you land up even before the host is there.
What's one book, quote, or philosophy that has stayed with you throughout your journey?
Okay, so I'm going to show you this one last slide because this one quote is really sort of close to my heart, and it's by a Greek philosopher, 500 BC, and he says, no man ever steps in the same river twice, or it's not the same river and he's not the same man. So things are changing around you, so you need to change.
Discipline or adaptability, which matters most in modern leadership?
Nitesh, I think both, because discipline gives you that foundation, and without adaptability, I think you can't navigate this world as it is today. So I think both are important.
So what's your secret weapon? Humor, strategy, or patience?
So honestly, patience. The military life is completely different, and so now you step into this and just really have to grit your teeth and say, let's be patient to what you're saying.
So if not the army, what else would you have chosen?
So I put on the uniform for the first time when I was 16 years old, and I removed it when I was 60 years old. So it's like a second skin. I can't think of anything sort of similar or where I would have gone.
So one parting piece of advice for everybody here. What is the thought that we can take back with us?
Yeah, so I would suggest. So again, this is like a military sort of quote, which says, "Mission first, people always." And these are not contradictory. So mission is key. Your objective, what your company wants to do, remains sort of paramount. But the people who are behind it and who are helping you achieve that need to be sort of equally looked after. So, as I said, mission first, people always.
Okay, I think that's something that we need to do. I have time for literally just two questions if anybody wants to ask in general. Yeah, Paul.
Thank you, sir. A wonderful coincidence. I read your very insightful article in Hindustan Times earlier today. You made this very interesting distinguishment. You made this very interesting difference between punishment and deterrence. In the context of leadership, when do you think is the right time to use high with?
Look, I think you have to see. He's referring to an article which came out today in the Hindustan Times in the context of Operation Sindoor, where I said, while we have punished Pakistan, we need to look at the larger issue of can we deter Pakistan from doing what it is doing, or do we just sort of keep punishing? See, in a long-term perspective, you have to see what is it that we wish to achieve. And in that context, I wrote, what we want to achieve is not that every time Pakistan hits you, you will hit it back. But can we stop Pakistan from doing that? So what is the larger sort of objective? And I said this, you have to distinguish between what is backward looking, taking action after something has already happened, or prevent that action from happening, which is forward looking. So that's how you need to look at. I don't want this thing to happen at all, rather than saying, once this has happened, this is how I will react.
Folks, unfortunately we're slightly out of time, but General Huda is around, so please, after the session, do feel free to reach out to him. So thank you so much. It's been a real honor and pleasure to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. That was incredibly insightful. If leadership is the foundation, the next question is, how do you actually win? Our next session brings together leaders who have built and scaled category-defining businesses. This conversation is about the playbook for winning a category, from defining the opportunity to building differentiation and to executing consistently at scale. Our first panelist, Mr. Jasbir Singh, Executive Chairman and CEO of Amber Enterprises, with over 25 years of experience in building and scaling manufacturing businesses in consumer durables and electronics, he has played a pivotal role in shaping India's appliance ecosystem. Mr. Singh has been recognized as the man of appliances by the Consumer Electronics and Appliances Manufacturers Association for his contribution to the industry. Mr. Singh, honored to have you with us. Please welcome me in joining you to the stage, please. Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Manish Gupta, co-founder, chairman, and CEO of Indegene. A first-generation entrepreneur, Mr. Gupta has built Indegene from an Indian startup into a globally respected, technology-led healthcare solutions company. What makes his journey especially compelling is the conviction to build in a highly specialized space long before it became an established category, combining medical depth with digital capabilities. So it's not just the scale that he has built, but the category that he has helped define. Mr. Gupta, delighted to have you with us. And to carry this conversation forward, may I invite Chirag Shah, Principal, Avendus Future Leaders Fund, to join us on stage. Thank you.
Well, at the outset, thank you, Mr. General Huda. What an inspiring talk. I mean, we heard first time from you all the leadership skills, and I take back a lot of principles that you taught us around attachment versus detachment, instinct versus data-led decision making. Thank you so much for that. And while leadership in the corporate world is tested very differently, the underlying principles that you taught us in terms of clarity, resilience, decision making, the underlying principles, as you clearly said, all remain the same. We have Jasbir and Manish out here. They have both built businesses from the ground up, scaled them, took them public, continued to grow with humility and entrepreneurial zeal, while continuously evolving along the way. Both of them have started before the current startup ecosystem in India took shape, as Gaurav mentioned, identifying unique scalable opportunities early on and building with conviction. Let me start with Jasbir first. General Huda spoke about strategic clarity and conviction. Back when you started Jasbir, India barely had any electronics manufacturing ecosystem, but yet you bet big on the electronics manufacturing. And going back 2.5, 3 decades of you being at Amber, what were the phases when your conviction really got tested, and what stopped you from pulling back in those situations?
Thank you for first of all having me here in this August gathering. We started our journey 25 years back with a sheet metal fabrication company, and we were at that time about 6.8 crore in a cozy town of Punjab called Rajpura. That's the beginning, and we started manufacturing air conditioners for some multinationals at that time. We could actually, the moment we started air conditioners, we just did a mapping on the data side on the per capita income, GDP growth of all the different countries, starting from the inventor country, which was US, where air conditioners were invented long back, about 116 years back. So this was a wonderful mapping of data which happened. As the per capita income goes up, as the GDP goes up, per capita incomes goes up, and on the behavioral pattern of a human being, your purchasing power shifts. And air conditioners is one sector with one product which is the last one to enter in the house. And it doesn't stop at 1 unit or 2 units. It has to be implemented at multiple units. So that was this is what we thought at the beginning, and then we did a very strong focus on R&D development, because we used to see that a lot of companies, especially our customers, they used to go to China and bring the whole boxes labeled under their name. And we all know that our neighbor is very fond of using geoeconomics to accomplish their geopolitical goals. And that's where every time when used to happen, our conviction used to be tested. But the resolve was very clear that we need to develop these systems, and it's a voluminous product. Once the market goes beyond a point, it will be very difficult, and it's a seasonal product. So जब मौसम ठीक नहीं चलता है, we are a greedy people, we pray in the morning कि 50 डिग्री कर दो, AC बिकने चाहिए, right? तो जब मौसम खराब हो जाता है तो हमारी conviction फिर टेस्ट होने शुरू होती है. But yes, that's on a lighter note. And in 2018, then we entered into electronics, because air conditioners was traveling its journey from fixed speed to inverters. And in inverter air conditioners, the large part of the BOM is inverter PCB board, more than the compressor, which is the key element. And we were not having that. Because air conditioning being largely on the thermodynamic side and electrical and mechanical parts, we were not having electronics. And when we approached our customers, most of the customers, whether it Korean or Japanese, somebody said it's IP product. Somebody straightly on my face said, you may be best in your class, but you don't know E of electronics. Somebody said it's a brain of AC. Somebody said कि इसमें algorithm जाता है, software जाता है, आपको क्या आता है इसके बारे में? So we got to know कि ये entry नहीं होगी. But entrepreneurship is very different, once you decide that on a strategy basis. So we ended up acquiring this small platform called Digital Electronics. It was run by a Korean, and it used to be just a $20 million in revenue with hardly any profitability at the bottom line side. That's what the beginning started. And first thing which we did was we brought in a lot of R&D engineers. We are very fond of R&D. Today we have 350 people in R&D across India, and we developed our own inverter. We were the first company in India to develop our own inverter models, and we started supplying to our customer. And that's where the conviction again got challenged, because the moment we used to match Chinese products, they used to drop the price every time, So, but because of our resolve, We said we are not allowing them to fight with us in our own battleground. So that's how the beginning started, and today we have about 33 plants in India, and we are leading into both electronic space as well as air conditioning space and train air conditioning side, and of course some small defense products also. That's what the beginning has been.
Fantastic. From bad weather to bad neighbors, a lot of challenges along the way, I guess. So let me stay on that thread. Manish, you grew up in a Marwari family in Lucknow and then trained at multinational firms like TCS, Infosys, HUL, if I'm not wrong. And each of these firms have very, very different cultures. What did you carry forward from those experiences and what did you have to unlearn while you started your own business? And what were the founding principles with which you founded Indigi?
First of all, thank you so much for inviting me over here. It's such a pleasure and it's such an inspiration to hear Lieutenant General Huda talk. It was really amazing. Now, you named a few companies. Incidentally, I stayed in these companies so short that there was very little to unlearn. Right? I worked in 4 companies in 3.5 years, and realized that corporate life is not for me, right? And I'll come to some of the things which I learned for sure. As far as Marwari family is concerned, they also had an issue. As a lot of my close friends and co-founders teased me that I had a obscenely mutated Marwari gene. My dad became a scientist, and he was a scientist. Even when we were going public, right? I was with him going out, and a lot of people would walk up to me, congratulate. It was almost a buzz, right, around you. And he was like, "What is the big deal? Private se public? Why is so much noise?" And I said, "Okay, you do your research. Don't worry about this stuff." But he was very early on. One of the industries I knew, the only industry I had heard about when I was growing up in Lucknow was the pharmaceutical industry, because my dad was working in a place. He was a scientist in Central Drug Research Institute, which was one of India's premier research drug research place, and a lot of India's scientists came from, even in the industry, came from there. So I learned about that, and obviously there is a bit of it's a spirit of excellence in the family, cutting edge, right? My father was in MIT working with Hargobind Khurana. I had come down to India, so that it was that kind of a environment, right? Always a bit more on the cutting edge. In fact, for a very long period of time, I wanted to become a scientist till I saw him class 9 or 10 struggling because of various issues, and then I realized this too after working so hard. So that's when I pivoted. Now, moving to the part, I worked in all these companies, but the reality is that although it was for only 11 months, but Infosys made a very strong impact on me. Because in spite of what is happening now, the AI part, it was a place created with a purpose, with a vision, and it was truly created in an institutional way, right? So that was processes, systems, professionalism. That's something which I definitely, even in those 11 months, learned from that place, and that's something which we took to Indigi, right? One of the, again, General Huda spoke about purpose. We were very clear right from day one that we want to create an institution that is going to outlast any one of us. That's one, right? The second thing we said is we want to create global impact. Right. Third thing is we don't want to be another company, and I keep joking about it that when we started, I live in a place called Koramangala in Bangalore. In the 99-2000 era, every alternate lane had 3 software companies. Indeed. Right. So we were very clear we don't want to create another software services company, even if it means that we make a lot of money. We want to create something which is unique, which is differentiated, stands for itself. Right, and I would say even some of these things which I spoke about, we put them, anything which we are doing, we put through this filter today.
Fantastic. That brings us nicely to the next question. I mean, one of the common themes that I see across both the businesses is that both the businesses that you run depend heavily on client trust. And that's the starting point. You can't even get a real entry point into a business unless you get the client trust. So starting with you, Manish, I mean, Indigi today works with 20 out of the top 20 pharma companies globally. What does it really take to get that first entry? And tell us, how did you convert early credibility wins into scaled long-term partnerships?
So I would break this into two parts, right? In fact, I would think that the first part, getting a break, while it's not easy, it's not that difficult, right? Breaking into one or two clients, and especially at a tactical project by project level, was not that difficult, right? And in our case, one of our co-founders shifted to the US. We got with consultants, right? Used credibility. We did a bit of innovation, of course, right? Thought about solutions which were clearly unique, got those clients. But that was probably 1% of the whole thing. Even till 2010, in fact, I keep saying that our real journey, and as a company, we started off in 2010, I would say. We were an $9-10 million revenue company in that, in approximately 2010, probably 10-ish. But most of our business was project by project, right? Working with brands, very fragmented, decentralized type of engagements we were winning with some of the large companies, right? And we had 3-4 large clients, or probably small ones. And that's when we were raking our heads on, this is no way you can build a very scaled business to this, right? You need to be working on a theme which is playing out, right? And you can grow with the client, and there needs to be a recurring business. And we are trying a bunch of things, right? Not going to get into those details, and we are banging our head on that. It so happened that at the same time, pharma was going through this whole cycle, which is now called patent cliff, Ender blockbuster era, Lipitor, which was Pfizer's $15 billion product, was going off patent, and there are a bunch of things like that, right? Clearly, it was very evident that pharma is going to make a shift, right? And we had to at that point in time take a bet, where are we going to go, right? And how do we play in this new pharma trend that's going to be coming in? And one of our project by project clients was clearly making a shift, and we went ahead and pitched over there, right? There was RFP, and first time we thought, we almost had this arrogance that they want to do hardcore medical marketing work out of India. Who else, right? And we went with the pitch, and the client stopped us in between, right? Guys, you haven't got the brief. And finally, anyway, we were not selected, right? We were a $10 million company. 4 or 5 companies got selected. The smallest one was $2 billion in revenue. There are a lot of champions of ours, and they said, listen, you are still selling that, you're in a project mode, right? And what we needed is a support in 40 countries, right? And I was so shattered. We were obviously trying to break into this client, pure hustle. But on the other hand, we reached out to some friends of ours who put me in touch with the ex-Infosys head of sales, right? Who became an advisor and consultant to us for some time to help us think through institutional sale. To the long story short, the same customer, right, had some issues with some people, and luckily they had champions. They gave us an opportunity finally, right, as an interesting, nice company to try while they work with these things. Then we threw everything we had, right, into the game in terms of talent, innovation, and by the way, today that client is north of $40 million, and I'm hoping this year it's going to cross $50 million for us, right, after 2010. And we built a lot of capabilities of this shifting centralized sales and marketing. Pharma sales and marketing, which was highly decentralized, started getting centralized at that point of time. That's a theme which is still playing on, and which we believe is going to continue to play on much more with AI, right? So we were just at that starting point, and we lapped into that. And after that, for many years, we kept on throwing, as I said, everything. We did acquisitions, we built IP, we built processes, hired talent, and then of course the whole cycle continued once you had some credible wins.
Fantastic. Jasbir, I guess for your business too, trust is the foundation of everything that you do. So how have you been able to build trust with your clients, and how have you been able to scale them over the years?
So, see, trust is basically it's a process where it takes you years to build a trust with a client, and that is done through consistency in your performance, and performance has various measurabilities. So we've generally cracked most of our clients by giving very optimized solutions, mapping interests versus needs. We've spread our plants in the vicinity of customer clusters, so we are very near to them. Our response time is very quick. We have large offering on the product side, which was not the case 25 years back, but it took us time to build the whole thing. And then of course, as Manish mentioned, talent but largely, I think I would say that if I have to give credit of entry, हम normally बोलते हैं client को कि सर आप उंगली पकड़ा दो गले हम खुद लगे. So, but the strategy is driven by alignment in the vision of the company. Our vision is to be the first choice of a customer. Now, theoretically, it sounds very appealing, first choice of a customer. I ask my team whether you are first choice or first option. Option will be replaced. Choices are like spouses. मुश्किल हो जाता है बाद में. So if you are first in all parameters, if you are first in cost competitiveness, in delivery, in quality, innovation, safety, compliances, governance, ESG score, attitude, response time, if you are not first in any one of them, you become a first option. So that is the measurability what we do, and I think that has won our clients. I mean, of course, if you want to crack a Japanese client, there's a process to follow. I mean, it doesn't take anything less than 3.5 to 4 years. You want to crack a Korean company client, 3 to 4 years. A US-based company maybe 2.5 to 3.5 years. And if I have to local Indian companies who are buying from China, then it is just a cost parameter. So you have to map where it is, but largely it is these kind of parameters.
And speaking of tough moments, Manish, you faced many defining moments in the journey of Indegene, from 2005 acquisition that nearly destabilized the business to walking away from the capital that you had an offer for in 2016, and then of course that was to protect the long-term direction that you had to protect for Indegene. In those big moments, what did resilience actually look like? And how did you practice it, while making those tough decisions, and how did you stay grounded while those tough decisions had to be taken?
So, actually, right at the outset, I keep joking about it, and Gaurav and Kaushal will probably completely understand where I'm coming from. When we started our business, and we are probably the same vintage of 2000. Kind of a thing. Very quickly in our journey, we got hit by what .com burst, 2001, right? 9/11, and those are really, really tough times, right? When we were very small businesses. 2002, 31st March, I still remember our revenues was 2.2 crores, right? And we ran out of cash. We had no cash in the bank. We had this massive plan of building a healthcare infrastructure, which obviously is not happening because you can't raise any money, right? From there, we not only had to generate revenue, we had to be profitable and we had to generate cash, right, to pay salaries, right? So those are the, I would say, growing up days for us as a company. And at one level, a lot of people who worked there for a very long period of time, and most of us, the co-founders, we always said that how more tough can it get, right? For whatever it is. That's one. But the second important thing is going back to purpose, right? What again we discussed. Whenever we had these tough times, we always finally stepped back and said, what are we trying to do over here, right? And while this is a perturbation right now, disappointment, right? Are we still on track to do what we set out to do? In that case, let's put our head down, figure out what needs to be done now, right? Stay in now, let's not worry about what we did in the past, what's going to happen 10 years down the line, what do we fix right now, right? That's been the approach which obviously over time came in. Third, I would say that we've been very, very fortunate to be surrounded by people, right? Well-wishers, advisors, mentors, board members, who've been super useful. You spoke about 2005 acquisition, I still remember 2007. What was it, 8? Anyway, I had come back from the US after. We acquired this company, which we thought was a well-run company with a stable management team, funded by Apex partners, bunch of other very high-profile VCs, right? And we thought management is going to run it. Over time, we'll build capabilities in India, move some of the things over here. But after some point in time, the company started losing money because they were losing some clients, big clients, and they were losing tons of money. For a company which had built bootstrap, you see a couple of $1 million of loss, right? That was tough. And we were fixing it. I came back from the US. I was after having a big fight with my co-founder, right? Because both of us were clueless what to do. And I came back over here. And this board member, at that point in time, advisor, he texted me, how is it going? Right? And he met me after that. And I said, listen, both me and this co-founder of mine, his name is Rajesh, both of us should be fired, period. Right? We're messing this up. And he looked at me and said, listen, you're jet lagged, go home, have a drink, sleep, tomorrow we'll talk. Right? And you got to do another acquisition. Right? And we sat back, right? And we had a brainstorming session. We realized it's okay to slow down growth a little bit, which is very difficult for an entrepreneur. Right? Let's focus on rationalizing, getting the bottom line in place. And we did a massive restructuring of the US operations. At that point in time, pretty much got rid of the entire management team, took complete charge of the US entity, right, and turned it around. So I would say that has also been a blessing for us in many cases. Most of our things, and we also are surrounded by great people.
And just just wondering, how has your leadership style changed over the years? If you were to look back, you started from a single factory, and now it's a giant operations running into many different businesses. And of late, of course, you have also taken very bold bets, getting into bare PCB segment, expanding through various acquisitions into various adjacencies. What has given you the conviction to act despite a lot of those uncertainties that you face? And how do you balance taking big bets while staying disciplined to your core strategy?
I think like Huda sir also mentioned, and Manish is also, so if the clarity of purpose is there in the organization and team is aligned with one vision, compounding of focus happens. So that is the intangible which we see through. So, and as you move ahead, you make a principle-based organization. So where we've been diversifying into adjacencies, and like just printed circuit board and electronics story started with a small $20 million company with 3% EBITDA. I think this year we are targeting more than $500 million. In just 6 years, this journey has started, and we acquired 4 companies under this Ilgin Electronics, and we've laid out 4S principle through which we expand into inorganic growth. Now these 4S principles are: first is direct synergy in the business. Second is scalability. I don't want to buy saturated businesses or there's any hindsight of technology obsolescence going forward. Right? Third is staying of promoter with us for at least 2 to 3 years. Handing over customer relations, staff relations is easy, and in case there is any issue in the balance sheet, we can adjust in the second tranche. And fourth S is most important, which is sasta. महंगी चीज खरीदनी नहीं है. So with this CV, I can actually apply to Gaurav Deepak's team. So in last 12 years, we've looked at about 78 companies, and we've done DDs of 22, and we've acquired 10. All small platforms, but growing very well. So that's how we built, and so purpose, alignment of vision, and of course the core values of trust, transparency, and good intentions and hard work. So these are the intangibles on which we work on. Of course, on the tangible factors, scale and efficiency is very, very important for a B2B company like us.
Let me sum this up with a question on impact for you, Manish. You run various personal CSR initiatives, particularly in education, and that really reflects the long-term orientation that you have. In many ways, it is a signal that you are shifting from value creation to value dissemination, and also from enterprise scale to societal scale. How are you approaching this next phase of your life and the impact that you are creating, and what kind of institutions or outcomes you hope to shape over time?
So I would say 2 things. One is we believe that our journey from an indigenous impact perspective is probably just started, right? That's where a lot of impact will get created. But on the other hand, the place where we are playing, and I'm as a company and me personally as well, right? Whatever philanthropic initiatives I have done personally, luckily, and what we are doing as a company, pretty much at the same bucket. That's not exactly education. It's more innovation and deep science, right? Cutting edge stuff. We believe that India over the next few decades, this decade, next decade, needs to move from this arbitrage model to a much more innovation driven model, right? The arbitrage model, if it's not dead, it will die in the next few years, right? And that's a broad theme which we are supporting. For example, and why the reason it comes out as education is that we supported Plaksha, right? But what we are doing is a digital health chair over there, right? And some grants for some cutting edge stuff. We have done a similar thing in Ashoka. We partner with CCAM, right? Which is in Bangalore, a big hub for incubating biotech startups. India really has not got many products coming out of from a country this size, right? We need to have innovative our own products, which are probably $1 billion therapeutic products in the market. So that's another place we are supporting. We work with a think tank which is focused on just science and technology. So those are the broad themes we are pursuing, with the fact that India needs to coming up with deep science and cutting edge stuff over the next few decades, and that's what I would want to do personally as well.
Thanks for that, Manish. Let me lighten this up a bit. I expect you guys to just give me a very brutally honest answers to the question that I'm asking. You both have been building businesses for the last 25 years. What do young founders today complain about? What makes you think you guys have no idea? You guys have actually got it all easy.
देखो हमारे टाइम पे 25 साल पहले कहते थे लड़के को नया बिजनेस शुरू करके दिए, और अगर पहले साल लॉस हो जाता था तो कहते थे गधा है. नाउ इट इज उल्टा, जितना लॉस करते हो वैल्यूएशन उतनी बढ़ जाती है. So, but no, I think with all due respect to today's entrepreneur who are building billion-dollar companies just on one laptop, capital is in abundance if your disruption, scalable and sustainable models are there. I think they have a kind of a different type of challenges and difficulty these days.
Anything that you want to add here, Manish?
I would say while it's very different, and I would say I feel a bit jealous, right? Seeing that you don't have to struggle for capital, right? And you can truly play a big game, but those are very different pressures. So all glory to all the young generation entrepreneurs.
What's one piece of startup advice that you hear these days that you don't want to buy at all?
See, every startup which comes पहले बोलते हैं कि सर हम speed and disruption की बात करते हैं, whether वो AI, ML and all. I think speed is important, yes, but durability and resilience, I believe, is more important.
I agree I completely agree with that. I don't. One of the things which I see much less these days, and I keep saying that. Again, the IT guys are getting beaten up, but probably that's the last industry that came up, where there was a real intent to build institutions, right? And at least I don't see a lot of that happening, right? And I don't think that's a good thing, right? You've got to go back to the roots of institution building.
Got it. And last one, what's one leadership habit of yours that your team knows so well that they can predict your reaction even before you say it?
So for me, it is like I told you 4S. कि 4S पे नहीं आ रहा है इनको दिखाइयो मत. बता देंगे.
For me, it is feedback which is there and then, right? There is a joke almost that especially in the Zoom time, there were times when my video was off or thing, and the team would say, Manish, we're feeling slightly nervous. Because the good thing is that we can take away your face, this is not going well or going well, right? And you explode, so we can pivot. So be absolutely candid.
Thank you so much. This was a conversation really on leadership in its truest sense. Next time we should have Mr. General Huda swapping roles for a day, and maybe you can answer question on ROC targets, quarterly targets, year-on-year, quarter-on-quarter growths.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sir.
Why don't you go? You can just go on the stage for a picture.
Mr. Singh and Mr. Gupta, thank you for sharing so openly. What's clear from this conversation is that building at scale is never just about strategy or capital. It's about the decision you make when the answer isn't obvious. Thank you so much for all of you for being here tonight. Please join us for dinner, cocktails, and an evening of conversations. We also have live music set up, so do stay on, unwind, and enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you so much.
I'm